Greetings, brethren. This is Brother Medina from Tuesday Seventh-day Adventist and Associate Director of the Tuesday Institute of Religious Liberty. Today we will do a review of the world with regards to the rights and freedoms of man. And we will see just what the nations are doing with regards to either protecting or attacking the rights and freedoms of man. But before that, we need to take certain things into consideration. We need to recognize that all the rights that man has can be categorized into three basic fundamental rights. All the rights that men have can be categorized as three basic fundamental rights. They are the right of religious liberty, the right to life, and the right to private property. These are the three basic rights of man. These rights go with 8 basic freedoms. 8 basic freedoms that are necessary to exercise those rights. Those 8 basic freedoms are freedom of thought, freedom of belief, freedom of conscience, freedom of choice, freedom of opinion, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of movement. These are 8 basic freedoms, and these freedoms are necessary if one is to practice or exercise and enjoy their rights. So rights are enjoyed or practiced by exercising freedoms. For instance, if we want to exercise what you call to gain private property, the right of private property, then we must have movement to gain money or to work. So freedom of movement is necessary to get private property. And also to exercise religious liberty, freedom of belief is necessary. So one must have religious, to exercise religious liberty, one must have freedom of belief, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, freedom of choice. So those freedoms that we exercise are necessary to enjoy our rights. Now, another important thing we need to take into consideration is that we are told in the Bible in Romans chapter 13 and verse 8 that to owe no man anything but to love one another. So we owe one another love, which we are told is the fulfilling of the law. And the law of God is an expression of the rights of man. What we owe to our fellow men are their rights, and we are to relate to human beings according to rights and respect for their freedoms. This is the reason why governments have been established. Governments have been established to protect the rights and freedoms of human beings. And since government has been established to protect the rights and freedoms of human beings, it would mean that we need to see what governments are doing with rights and freedoms all over the world. Now, in this booklet here, I have divided the different countries of the world into different groups. We have, number one, communist countries like China, like Cuba, like Vietnam, and other communist countries in the world. Then we have Islamic countries like those of North Africa and those of Arabia and Indonesia and other places. And then we have Russia, that large continent. And then we have also the western countries of Europe and Canada. And then we have the United States of America by itself. And then we have Latin America. Then we have the Caribbean region. And then we have Africa. These are the divisions that we're going to look at as we seek to explain how governments are treating the rights and freedoms of men in those countries. Now, first of all, in communist countries, what we need to understand is this. Because religion and its values are viewed as opposed, they are viewed as opposed to the ideals of socialism, the nature of anti-rights and anti-freedom actions in such states, such socialist or communist states, is either to limit or regulate or to outlaw Christianity or religion to protect state socialism. That's what they do. Such attacks by socialist states are based upon what Christianity teaches. In other words, since Christianity, the teachings of Christianity are supposed to be against the socialist ideas of these communist states, in order to protect their socialism, their socialist way of life, they must outlaw Christianity. Thus, religious liberty and what we would call religious liberty and rights and freedoms are interfered with by these communist countries. So we have freedom of belief, freedom of opinion, freedom of expression are under assault by such governments. So it is your belief of Christianity or other religions that they are attacking, your opinions and your expression of it. And that's why in communist countries, freedom of belief, freedom of opinion, freedom of expression, religious liberty are under assault by such governments. And this is what happens in socialist countries all over the world. Now, let's look at Islamic countries. In Islamic countries, the facts are, because Islam is the enforced state religion, and this is the will of Allah, their God, Islamic countries do not recognize religious liberty or freedoms. They do not recognize that. They do not recognize religious liberty, they do not recognize freedom of belief, freedom of conscience, freedom of choice, and freedom of opinion. Because Islam is the enforced state religion, and this is Allah's will as far as they are concerned. These things like freedoms are to them interferences in the will of Allah by the so-called heresies these freedoms introduced into their system. Chief heresy is Christianity for them. Thus, any expression of these rights and freedoms with regards to any religion other than Islam, the state religion, especially Christianity, that is promptly put down or extinguished or dealt with by governments in Islamic countries. This is the type or the form of anti-rights and anti-freedom actions that Islamic countries take. And we have examples in Pakistan and certain parts of Nigeria, certain parts of Sudan, where all such attacks are taking place based upon people's religious beliefs. And so the hate for Christianity, because it is against the state religion, because its ideas are against the ideas of Islam, this clearly shows that it is freedom of thought, freedom of opinion, freedom of belief, freedom of conscience that is attacked by Islamic countries. And this is happening in Islamic countries over the world now.